I think we'll make a start. Thank you very much for joining, everybody. I hope you gained something from the teachings today. As always, if you have a piece of paper and a pen or your reflective diary, please get it, because these teachings are always in the traditional form, which, if you remember, is hearing, reflecting, and realizing. Yeah. So hearing, you can be listening to somebody, or hearing is also to study a text. But then, for it to, how could you say, like start to cook on the oven, you need to start to reflect on it. What does this mean? And then finally to realize the truth of it, the wisdom. So remember, we have those three aspects, yeah. And I remember once, one of my teachers in Bhutan, he said, there's a very great danger that you just listen to teachings like they're a nice story, you know, like they're a nice nursery rhyme or something like that. That's just hearing. To activate it, we have to hear, reflect, and then realize. So always, if you try to remember that, I think it's quite useful. And yeah. So we have the chat function here. If you're not familiar, at the bottom of your screen is a little chat function. And that enables you to send a general question, which everybody will see. Or if for any reason you want to send me a specific question, I think you just choose me, and then the message comes to me. And these next 4 sessions I named the wide path of meditation. But as always, you can ask any question about anything if I can be any help. In terms of this title that I chose, the wide path of meditation, we can divide it into 3. I think it's quite nice to have that structure. So we can talk about the wide motivation, which, if you're already studying Buddhism, you can call the bodhicitta motivation. Here, I'll put the Sanskrit term here. The bodhicitta motivation, if you're knowing, that's Junchub Sem. That's the wide motivation. We'll look at that. And then we have the wide path of method. We're going to look at that. And then we can consider the wideness of the results. So I think for a clear structure, we can think of this as a wide motivation, the wide possibility of so many methods, and the possibility of limitless results. Now, when I was in retreat, and the practices that I'm doing at the moment really made it very clear to me some of the differences between what one might call secular mindfulness and Buddhist practice. And we'll probably find, as we go in these 4 weeks, we will see some of those points of difference. And I may refer to the notion of mindfulness within this set of teachings also. So first of all, I think, and you'll understand this why in a little bit later in this session, first of all, I think we'll start off just by settling our mind with some basic breathing. So for the moment, you can put your piece of paper and down. It's very good, and before the start of any serious practice, any study or anything really, is to know that you can quickly and effectively settle the mind. I think for those of you that did the wisdom teachings, if you remember that graphic of the water, with the upper layers of the water very disturbed, and then in a body of water, the lower levels of the water are much calmer and stiller. Yeah. And the easiest way to settle the mind in the first instance is usually through the breathing. So if you pay attention first of all to your physical body and come to a seated position which feels comfortable, and placing your hands somewhere which feels comfortable. Well, first of all, we'll close our eyes. Although meditation ultimately is done with the eyes open, which I know may be shocking for some people, here to take our attention inward, like Pratyahara, if you're familiar with the yogic path, and to settle the mind. And first of all, we will close the eyes. And as we close the eyes and we take our attention inward and become aware of the physical vessel of our body, take a few moments to cultivate the feeling of balance. Feeling that the body is becoming balanced. And then cultivate the feeling that the body is becoming balanced within its surroundings. So the way that it is sitting, or what the body is sitting on, the space that the body is in. Cultivate the feeling of profound balance. And then simply become aware of the breathing in this physical body. And usually it's helpful if you bring your attention into the tummy area. And if you've been a parent, you may have watched your baby, young baby, breathing in and out, sort of wondrous at the fact that it's alive. And the miracle of it, breathing in and out, which is so incredible and enthralling. So with this kind of mother's and parent care, and you can feel your breathing in, there may be a slight pause. You can feel your breathing out, there may be a slight pause. So it's as if you're mixing the awareness of your breathing with a profound care, profound love even. particularly as you breathe out, cultivating this sense of sending feeling of love and care through your own being, through your own body and all aspects of your being. And we can just close that simple practice, which doesn't take very long. And you can notice what you have discovered. You may have discovered the benefits of such a simple practice. You may have found a little about what distracts away from such a simple practice. Some wish for the mind to be jumpy. To undercut what is naturally peaceful for us, what's naturally good for us, some resistance to that may be there also. All right. So let's touch on this point before we begin with the wide path of motivation. How huge our motivation can be. Motivation being something in the mind, obviously. I need to share this point with you. Perhaps in one way, the Buddhist path maybe differs from secular mindfulness. Firstly, because the assumption that within each and every sentient being is the potential to become an enlightened being. Not just a calm being, but a shining, enlightened being full of the completed qualities of compassion and wisdom. So you can say from a Buddhist point of view, when you look at a sentient being, you see that its possibilities are enormous. As I've said, the wide results. There could be no wider, no greater, no more limitless results than that of realizing your Buddha nature from a Buddhist point of view. Fully awakened is very different from just being calm or in the present. If you can see the difference there, maybe. Although there are steps along the way. Now, within a true Buddhist path of meditation, from the center of your heart, we can think in two directions. Yeah? Maybe if we use the word care or love, right? If it's not too hippie Coca-Cola advert sounding. Now, from a Buddhist point of view, it's like the potential of our love goes in two directions. And you will find this throughout any Vajrayana practice, throughout any Himalayan Buddhist practice. The enormous love that we are capable of is sent in two directions. First, it is sent outwards towards the things which support and inspire us. And they would be teachers, the Buddha himself, the words of Dharma, the Sangha, etc. Now, when we see this form of love described, you will probably see it called devotion or faith. The second form of love goes outwards towards all sentient beings. And we would probably call that form of love compassion. But the root of them is the same. Now, when we talk about secular mindfulness, I don't think you're going to hear those words so much, maybe. But when we talk about the wide motivation and the wide path of meditation, and the wide results, the limitless results, then we will have the profound capacity for a selfless love going in two different directions. One will sort of be called devotion, and one will be called compassion. Now you may think, oh, there's a very young student just come in there. Hello, young student. I think in Germany there. Very good. Yeah. Very good. Very good, young student there. I would say, Claudia, that if you read the text of Guru Yoga, when you imagine Vajrayogini, which is the embodiment of primordial wisdom, she is always described as naked because she's purely realized. And so I'm just remembering that, seeing your young child there. So physical nakedness is seen as a state of enlightened mind, free of any confusion, elaboration, any clouds. Anyway, I digress. Now, so we may think, oh, well, I quite like the idea of compassion. That sounds quite nice. She's probably quite a nice person to hang out with. Oh, devotion, not sure about that. That all sounds like you're being taken advantage of. Institutional religion, oh, don't think I like that idea very much. And we can talk about these things. But the important point, which maybe takes a while to understand, is that this way of viewing is none other than an essential way of meditation. Why is that? That is because for the mind to go beyond its usual conceptual limits, its usual conceptual boundaries, to go far deeper down into the stillness of the mind, the feeling of love which comes with devotion, the feeling of love which comes with compassion does that for us. It frees us from the conceptual mind. And so it's none other than a method of meditation. It's none other than a way of freeing your own mind. And students who have the feeling of devotion they're very special, and they with that comes a lot of useful qualities, like the quality of not giving up and quality of determination. When you begin to meditate, somehow that quality can be important, because sometimes you don't know why you're meditating, because it's not very easy, actually. None of the results seem to be very nice. But if you have this feeling of somehow love towards these practices, somehow some feeling of devotion to something greater, somehow some wish to develop compassion, even if the results of meditation aren't coming very easily or very quickly, somehow it will help to give you that determination, that sense, oh, there's something here, feeling. Okay, so I wanted to get that really across, right? In the love of the sentient being, the conceptual mind is freed, broken open, you can say, because of the feeling of awe and devotion, something greater, and the feeling of the possibility of limitless compassion towards sentient beings. And it's like things just expanding. And it is, I'm not interested if you agree with the idea or not. What I'm telling you is that it is none other than a method of meditation in its own right. There we go. Oh, yeah. So, now, let's think about this. So when we talk about the wide motivation in practice, we are talking about expanding the mind from the mind which clings to a notion of a separate self, and the suffering that arises from that way of thinking, the feeling of being trapped. And we are talking about expanding our connectedness, our compassion, our love outwards, outwards, outwards. Now, in a very easy way, that means that whatever practice you are doing, I encourage you to let go of the idea that when you begin to practice, you have to somehow practice just for yourself. And then later on, when you're better at practice, you can practice for everybody else. It may sound very tempting, but mentally, there's nothing to stop you gathering all beings when you practice right from day one. Obviously, physically, you don't have to run around your hometown giving out sandwiches. You may be too tired for that. You maybe have too many activities for that. But mentally, there is nothing to stop your mind expanding to all sentient beings when you practice. So if you are seduced by the idea of, first of all, I'll think about me and I'll get me sorted out, and then later I'll think about everybody else, please, I encourage you to think about that. And there's no need for the mind to be like that, to reinforce that sense of me and others. It will delay your progress on the path. It's not the nature of reality. As I sit here now, there will be many creatures around me. In fact, there was a little mouse outside the house today that Socks was extremely interested in. So I had to make a very deliberate act of preventing suffering of another sentient being this morning by picking Socks up and bringing him firmly into the house. There's definitely something living outside my decking, under there. I don't know what it is. There will be little creatures everywhere, actually, to be honest. So this idea that it's the reality that I can be here and everything can be over there. It's just, is a very technical term, doesn't have a Tibetan translation, doesn't have a Sanskrit translation. You'll be happy to hear. It's my own word, for don't waste your time doing that. So you're going to say, oh, okay, but how can I mentally bring all other beings onto the path with me? How do I do that? So if you remember from the compassion teachings, we are encouraged to visualize like this, yeah, even for a moment. In front of us on the right is all significant male creatures in this current life, our current father, our current brother, our current son, whatever. Gathering them there. Left side, current important females, mother, current sister, current daughter, etc., etc., etc. And then around us, like a big cloak or something, are all friends and acquaintances, yeah, people we can see the face of, you know, we can give them a name maybe, or we can recognize them, you know. And then beyond that, this sense of all the beings we don't know yet, like where I live, there are many people I don't know their name. I haven't seen them yet. They live in another part of town. I know they're there because there's Joy. I think it's 30,000 people live in our town. I can't remember, something like that. Well, I don't know 30,000 people here, so there must be a lot of people I don't know right now, right? So they're there, and then from my town out to my country, and then to Europe, not that we're supposed to mention Europe, and then America. Oh, we're definitely not supposed to mention America. You know, all those other countries where there's lots of things. And then, of course, we have all the other forms of sentient beings, the worms, the birds, the whales, the dogs, definitely the dogs, the cats, etc., 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 right? And then here's a very important thing. Then what about the people that we're in conflict with? What do we do with them? People that we're finding things a bit difficult with, our ultimate teachers. We place them right here, right in front of our tummy and our heart. We put them right here in our mind. Here's where they sit. And usually, from a practitioner's point of view, reflecting on who is there is very helpful. And you may even notice that you can think, oh, you know, 5 years ago, I would have put Mr. Custard here. And now Mr. Custard isn't there anymore. He's shifted over. He's kind of like an acquaintance now. So you will notice that there are these categories and that the categories are not fixed. I think anybody who's, you know, been married and got divorced knows very well how these categories can turn. So just mentally, even from the start, to develop the wide motivation, which is called the bodhicitta motivation, the awakened mind motivation, bodhi, awakened mind, citta is the activities of the mind, Changchub Sem, Sem in Tibetan, mind, Jangchub is enlightened. To develop that wide motivation with our mind, you know, I'm not going to invite everybody to come here and sit with me. 30,000 people in Whitstable, come into this room right now. I'm sure I can squeeze you in, right? But in my mind, there's no limit to how many I can bring in. So in some small way, right from the beginning, we want to practice like that if our motivation is going to be wide, not narrow, not suffer from the usual self-clinging that we suffer from. So just, I think you can reflect for a moment now, is there anybody that you would tend to leave out of your good wishes, your mind? Is there anybody that it's hard to be kind to? Somehow you will have everybody else there, but this person, no. That's the point at which you will learn some things with that person. You will learn some things about how to expand the mind, how to widen the motivation with that person. So I hope you have a person like that. So you can think for a moment, and you can, if you recognize you need to be a little bit more determined in terms of bringing them into your mind, heart, you can, write down some sentence or something. Remember not to exclude them. If you remember from the compassion course, remember that phrase, malupa. I said not leaving behind even one person on the railway platform when the train sets off. Not leaving them behind. But to invite them onto the train can be the hardest thing, for sure. But the peace of the mind, the peacefulness of the mind, it won't come if there's somebody. It won't come. In fact, it's very likely to come up in your meditation practice like some sort of undigested egg sandwich. Maybe from people who didn't grow up in England, these metaphors aren't working, but hopefully you get the picture. Yes, so this is the bodhicitta motivation, the capacity within the mind to realize there's no limit to who can benefit from your development, your meditation, your Buddhist path, your yogic path. Even in your mind, to allow all beings to benefit. It may be harder in real life with speech and with action, but in the mind there's no limit, there's nothing to stop that. So let's just breathe again, so we can place down our piece of paper and pen. So previously when we did our breathing, it's more like in a yogic or a mindfulness way to calm the mind, to calm the upper layers of the disturbed body of water. Yeah? And now we can go a little deeper. So again, if you remember, first of all, you can close your eyes, pratyahara. This is to stop external distraction. Settle into your physical body and cultivate the feeling of balance in your physical body. And cultivate an awareness of balance in your connection with your outer surroundings, how you're sitting, where you're sitting, what you're sitting on, the room that you're in. Just cultivate this feeling of everything being perfectly balanced. And bring into your awareness, and perhaps it helps to feel that it's an awareness above you. You can bring in an awareness of things which inspire you, help you, maybe teachers or Buddha or yogis, maybe some text. If it's not good to personify it in a form, you can even just have the feeling of clear light, of clarity, wisdom of clarity, like the rainbow that we discussed on the wisdom course. You can just generate that feeling of clear light. And then you can also develop this mental wide connection with the significant male figures as if on your right. You can bring them in, your current father, current son, current brother, etc. Just bring them into your mind. And then on the left side, the current female figures. They can sit like you're sitting with you. And you can begin to populate around you friends and acquaintances. And then just a sense of more and more sentient beings. You can begin to bring in animals and birds and fish. The mind expanding wider and wider like the sky as you bring in all these sentient beings, which are none other than existing. It's not a fantasy. It's none other than the nature of reality. And then finally, you can welcome in, just in front of you, anybody who currently is a little bit tricky. You know it's not harmonious. There may be more than one person, obviously. I hope there aren't too many people. But welcome them in, let them be there. Your mind is capable of recognizing they're all there. So now as you breathe in, breathe in this feeling of clear light or of inspiration, connection to your teacher. As if you're being filled with that wisdom and goodness and clarity as you breathe in. Yeah, it's as if connecting to this upper space. Just practice that, feeling that as you breathe in. And then also now as you breathe out this feeling of love in the form of compassion, love and kindness to all those sentient beings that are with you. Okay, so you're breathing in clarity, inspiration, the Buddha, none other than the Buddha. And then as you breathe out now with love and compassion to all of these sentient beings. And just remember, if it's at all difficult to send some feeling of love and compassion to the person right in front of you that you're struggling with, then you can remember that from a Buddhist point of view, the people that are suffering that need compassion are those which are in the grip of anger, jealousy, desire, greed, and not knowing their Buddha nature, and hatred. And when you look at that person in front of you, you may see a mind which is suffering because one of those illnesses, the suffering of pride, of jealousy, of insatiable desire, of not knowing their Buddha nature, of greed, or of hatred. If it's hard for you to feel compassion for the person in front of you, take a look. Are they suffering from one of those afflictions? You may need to remember that if it's hard to feel compassion for them. Try that for a moment if there is any difficulty there. Otherwise, just continue for a couple more moments. Okay. So you have generated a love which goes outwards and inwards, and a love that goes outwards and inwards. So to finish this practice, Just feel as if all of that care and love, feel as if it all just gathers up and enters back into your own heart. And then we can close that practice. So in some way, just in this very simple example, perhaps you can see the difference between maybe a secular mindfulness practice and a Buddhist practice. And I know particularly for, whenever I'm in Asia, whenever I'm in Bhutan, I find that it's much more easy for people to understand that devotion frees the conceptual mind. So, lucky if you're born there, maybe. So the point that we got to there, where we have recognized, we've brought in the love and the inspiration towards us, and then we have shared out compassion, and then we have gathered that and brought it back in. In Himalayan meditation practice, that's the point of beginning. When your mind has been freed from self-clinging and so much conceptual thinking, the point that we got to there is the point meditation would begin. Your heart, your love is there. So things are open and wide and loving. Then meditation can start. It's like that. But that may sound kind of cheesy. And I didn't realize it when I stumbled around on the beginning of my meditation path many years ago. I didn't understand it at all. But I understand it now, and I'm sharing it with you so you can go faster than I did. Make faster progress, I hope. Because of this two-way connection, because the first form of love and opening of the mind is towards what inspires us, which is none other than, from a Buddhist point of view, as I say, Buddha nature, realize Buddha, inspiring texts and figures, etc. Because that's the first kind of connection, and the clarity comes down, the love, the wisdom comes down into us. Of course, when we express compassion for all beings, it is also for ourselves. But the need for self-compassion is not there so much because one is already filled with this connection to a Buddha, to clarity, of endless wisdom and compassion. You've already done that with the first connection. So this idea in the West of self-care or self-compassion is not so necessary because you've already done it. Of course, when you share the compassion out, it's also benefiting you, but you're already attached to your main frame, being connected to what inspires you, what reminds you of your Buddha nature. So it's slightly, again, you can see a slight difference there maybe. Everybody's been very quiet and not asking me any questions, so I hope this is clear. Remember, do ask questions if it's making no sense, please. Yeah. So that may also touch on some issues which come up in the West in terms of meditation and compassion, etc. All right, so that very much has covered the wide path of motivation, the wide motivation in the Buddhist world, which is none other than the nature of reality. Then the very next, very exciting thing is the wide path of method. And there are so many methods, either in the yogic path or the Buddhist path. There are so many methods. And all of them, in fact, require a basic mindfulness. Whichever method you choose. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quote here. Actually, I'll say one thing first. The Tibetan verb for meditation is gompa, gompa. And it means cultivating. It means cultivating your mind. And there are many ways to cultivate the mind. And, you know, maybe in Western parlance, we may say choosing your mindset, cultivating a particular mindset. So in a way, the Tibetan word for meditating, gompa, is a little bit like that. Cultivating, knowingly cultivating your mind. What are you cultivating there? Like in your garden, are you cultivating poisonous plants? Or are you cultivating lotuses? Whatever you choose to cultivate, whichever method you choose, there will need to be a basic mindfulness, because otherwise you'll forget that you're cultivating it and get wandered off doing something else. You know, which is why people say, oh, I really wanted to be kind when I met this person, and then I just forgot. You know, such a basic lack of mindfulness in how we want to cultivate the mind, yeah? So there's a very great Bhutanese, practitioner, Pema Deki. If you come to Bhutan, you might hear of him. I mean, he's many centuries not here now, but his name is Pema Deki. Oh, no, I've sent it to one person. Everybody, I'll just put it here again. Pema Deki. Pema obviously is lotus. Kapo means white. Means it must be a male person. Po is always male. Pema Deki. And in translation, he says mindfulness. Mindfulness is not forgetting what one is acquainted with. And if you've heard me talk about this before, you will know that both in the Sanskrit, the Pali, and the Tibetan, mindfulness is associating with the verb to remember. It's not associated with being present. It's associated with remembering. Yeah, with remembering. Denpa, shepa, denpa, the Tibetan verb is to remember, right? Mindfulness is not forgetting what one is acquainted with. It is the fortunate condition of not wandering at all. I love that. It is the fortunate condition of not wandering at all. Obviously, they're referring to the mind here, the mind that doesn't wander, right? whichever mental habit you wish to cultivate, unless you can remember it and not wander away from cultivating it, then it won't be realized. The third of our three things: hearing, reflecting, realizing. To realizing, we need a basic mindfulness to not forget it. So the question is for you, what mental habits do you wish to cultivate? And what mental habits do you wish to free yourself from? Because you know they cause you suffering and they are trapping you. And to be without them would be a form of freedom. Obviously, I'm hoping you're writing something down at this point. Unless you decide to cultivate something, and unless you decide to be free of something, then how's it going to happen? That's why we're so lucky to have the human mind with such intelligence, can make these choices. Now, I know we're running out of time now. So nice to see everybody. Few questions. Teresa, I have no idea why the current circular mindfulness has been so about being present. I think it's because when we practice concentration, one-pointed mind concentration, we do need to be able to focus our attention. That's as much as I'm going to say on that right now, Teresa. Maybe we'll come back to it next time. So that seems fine. Yes. Yes, that seems fine, Yvonne. Yes, you've got the hang of it there. That's good. Oh, finally, Lindsay is saying, could you share what things you cultivated during your retreat? When we go into retreat in my tradition, it's very busy. We have a timetable. We have a very clear timetable of practices to do and studies to do. And so retreat is a period of where you're concentrating on your practice without the usual distractions. And it's a joy to have opportunity to simply do that, you know. The most important thing for a retreat is to have a teacher and to remember your teacher. That's the most important thing. Yeah. Okay. All right, now I didn't quite get as far as I wanted to today, but I hope what we've done has been profoundly helpful and has cleared up a lot of things and inspired you in some way. Next time we will carry on with the wide form of method, but always this wide form of motivation should always be there in our mind, like always there. So you can practice it, remember it, you can remember the visualization. You can think about who is coming here and how to soften that, what is to be learned there. And you can think about the love which goes in two directions, one in devotion and one as compassion. Yeah, that's none other than your limitless mind of love and wisdom, your true nature. So very nice to see everybody, even though I can't hear you, which is always a little bit disconcerting. But I look forward to seeing you next week, hopefully, when we'll continue. And then Lindsey is very kindly going to send the recording to everyone, so you can look again, and if you want to be supported in those breathing practices and understanding the differences, you can use it again. Or for these sessions, if you want to attend and then at the last minute you can't, you have the reassurance that the recording will come to you, so you don't have to worry on it. And I will be quite structured what I'm doing in these 4 weeks, so hopefully it'll have some clarity to it if you're able to listen to all 4 sessions. Right, Maggie,